Hello, welcome to At the Helm of Kubernetes. Today we're going to talk about Kubernetes, and in particular we're going to talk about Helm, a package manager for Kubernetes. Here's the part where I tell you I am definitely going to post the slides on my site tonight. I've been chasing similar speakers, and it's never worked out very well for me either, which is why you can go to robrich.org. Let's head there right now. When we go to robrich.org, we can click on Presentations here at the top. And here is At the Helm of Kubernetes. The slides and the code up on GitHub are online right now. Of course, conference Wi-Fi being what it is, it may take you a minute to get there. But head over to robrich.org, click on Presentations, and you will get straight there. While you're here on robrich.org, let's click on About Me and learn about some of the things that I've done recently. I'm a friend of Redgate, a Docker captain, and a Microsoft MVP in MCT. I'm also a Jetpack developer advocate. If you're struggling with Kubernetes, I'd love to learn with you. AZ GiveCamp is really fun. AZ GiveCamp brings volunteer developers together with charities to build free software. We start building software Friday after work. Sunday afternoon, we deliver that completed software to the charities. Sleep is optional, caffeine provided. If you're in Phoenix, come join us for the next AZ GiveCamp. Or if you'd like a GiveCamp here at Stir Trek or wherever you're traveling from, hit me up on email or Twitter, or find me later in the conference. Let's get a GiveCamp in your neighborhood, too. Some of the other things that I've done, Pro Microservices with .NET 6. That was a lot of fun to put together. I worked with Sean and Matt there. And I got to write 2 chapters, and so you can grab that book. One of the things I'm particularly proud of, I replied to a .NET Rocks podcast episode. They read my comment on the air, and they sent me a mug. Woo! So there's my claim to fame, my coveted .NET Rocks mug. And if you'd like a no, I'm just kidding. So let's dig into Helm. So we talked about this guy, Helm. Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. We can template YAML files, we can build packages, we can share packages and install packages from others, and we'll get to see each of those 3 use cases today. In particular, we're going to focus on building a Helm chart from scratch, which is really fun. We'll live code that. Wait a minute. Doesn't Docker already do that? Isn't that why I have containers, to be able to package up my application and not have all of these dangly bits? Well, yes. Docker will package the application. But then I end up with all of these Kubernetes YAML files. I have a pod definition. It may be baked into a deployment template. I probably have a service and ingress. Maybe I have roles and cluster bindings and volumes and secrets. It's all of that YAML. That's what we're going to package into Helm. We still need a Docker registry. We still need an image. And we'll leverage those inside of a Helm chart, a Helm package, to be able to deploy the rest of the app. So it doesn't replace Docker Hub or Docker images. It replaces that Kubernetes sprawl, the Kubernetes YAML sprawl. OK, so let's dig in. Now, I have here in GitHub, I have this source folder that includes the details of an application that I built. Oh, yep, I definitely can't do that. Is it going to let me go back? Yes. So let's pop that open in VS Code. I have a source folder. That's a website that I've built. Here's the Docker file that is able to produce that. And I've built that previously. So if we say Docker image list, we can see here at the top, here is At the Helm version 0.1.0. That's already done. Now, I've pushed it up to my registry, or I haven't. And we want to build a Helm chart. Now, here in the repository is that chart that we're about to build. But right now, that is empty. We don't have a chart folder. Perfect. So let's start building a Helm chart. Now, the first thing we want to do is create a folder. I'm going to call this chart, just because Helm charts are typically called charts, but we could call this folder anything. And inside here, I'm going to create a new folder, and I will call this one template. OK, I've now got 2 folders. Inside the chart folder, not the template folder, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this one values. Now, here's my Kubernetes YAML file. And this is all of the pieces to deploy my application. Now, in this case, I only have a deployment, a service, and an ingress. But we could imagine that we could also deploy volumes and secrets and config maps and anything else that we need. Now, this file may get sprawly. We can see a lot of duplication. I just want to focus on the things that are different in this application without having to specify all of that stuff. So let's focus in on the things that we care about. I'm going to pull values.yaml over here. We want to say we've got a name here, so we'll care about that. We want a service type, so let's change that to service type of node port in this case. We want port of 80. In our deployment, we have the number of replicas. Let's go grab that. Inside of here, we also have an image label. So let's call that image label. And we have a registry. Here's our registry. I'll just call it registry. And there's that. Now, I'll probably want to swap that in with something from my build system, or maybe that's package specific. So there's that registry there. I've got some resource details here. That'll likely be different between each application, so I'll set that in place. And coming through here to the ingress, now I may not always need an ingress. For internal services, maybe a service is sufficient. So let's say ingress enabled, and in this case I'll say true. And we've got some ingress annotations here, so let's go grab those. Ingress annotations. And we also have this ingress host. Ingress host. Cool. So we can see a lot of duplication in here. If we just pick at the Helm, we can see how many copies of that one verb do we have kicking around in this Kubernetes YAML file. And really, all we care about is these 14 variables. Can I just kind of mash that other Kubernetes YAML file behind the wall? Can I avoid dealing with that big mess and just focus in on just those last few details that I need? That's what we'll do with Helm. So we've got our values.yaml. And now I want to split my Kubernetes YAML file. So I guess I closed that a little bit too soon. I want to break that into pieces. So I'm going to create a new file here in templates. Let's call this service.yaml. And I'll go grab the service details here. Let's set that into service.yaml. I'm going to go grab the details for my deployment. And let's copy that into, oh, I scrolled too far. There we go. I'll copy that into a new template called deployment.yaml. And let's paste that into place. And let's go grab the ingress details. Here's the ingress details, and I'll add it into one more template, ingress.yaml. OK, so now I don't need this Kubernetes YAML file. I am going to add one more piece. And of course, I'll just reach into the chart that I did last time, and I'll go grab chart.yaml. So this chart.yaml, let's take a look at what that file does. Chart.yaml will specify some details about this Helm package, this Helm chart. Now, we have an API version and a name that looks kind of Kubernetes-ish. That's pretty cool. We have a description. Oh, we have a name at the Helm. So we can probably drop that one here from our values.yaml. It's already in our chart declaration. We've got a description. We have a type. Now, the type can be either application or library. If I have a library, these are reusable functions that I might include in other charts. Now, in this case, we're not going to use any reusable functions, so we'll just call this an application. Now, we have two different versions, the chart version and the application version. If ever you've played with package managers in the past where the application is going OK, but they need to do a major bump on the package version, and so now the package is a different version than the application, and Now how do we get them back in sync? And that's why we have two versions here. We have the version of the app that we are packaging, and we have the version of the Helm chart. Now this is perfect. If we need to iterate on the Helm chart, but the application doesn't change, then we'll change this version without changing that version. So now we've got that chart.yaml. And there is one more file that I'm going to go grab. I'm going to go grab this notes.txt. And this notes.txt is just an interesting description of, oh, I popped open something completely different. This notes.txt is just a definition of all of the things that might start up as we kick up our Helm chart. So now let's start replacing things with the values that we have here in this values YAML, and we'll start to use that to be able to specify the details of our templated thing. So we've got at the helm. Let's come in here and say we'll call this chart.name. And so in all the places where we've got at the helm, we can use chart.name. Let's do it here. Let's do it here. And we'll do it here. Cool. Now here in our service, we also have some other replacements expressions to do. Here we've got the type. We'll use .values.service type. For the port, we'll use .values.port. And since we're reusing the same port number for both port and target port, we'll just put that in place. Ooh, wow. The majority of our service declaration was just kind of duplicate values, you know, the schema that we needed to be able to explain this to Kubernetes. But really, all we cared about was 3 values here. I'm glad we could scaffold that into place. That was cool. So we've got that here. Let's come into the deployment and take a look at similar things. We want to set the number of replicas. So let's say replicas. We want to set the image label, values.image label. We want to set the image label here, values.image label. Here's the port. We want to specify here the .values.registry. And we've done pretty good. Now we're going to come back to resources because that's a little bit harder. Next, let's take a look at our ingress. Now we've already got chart.name. Let's do values.port. And this one will actually not be chart.name, but rather values.ingress host. Cool. Now, we've gotten quite a bit through our YAML file, and we've been able to simplify it down into just those values that we care about. I've already got the Helm CLI installed, so let's come in here and say Helm Lint, and I'll give it the folder name. In this case, I chose to call it chart. Ooh, looks like we're doing good so far. Any questions so far about the details of how we templated out this YAML file? Yes?
Are all those keys and values case sensitive? Does not matter in your YAML?
Good question. What's with these replacement expressions? Are they case insensitive or case sensitive? They are case sensitive. I actually did an exploration once where I renamed values.yaml to capital V, and everything broke. This is also lowercase to match these lower cases, but what really bugs me is this is chart.name with a capital N, in spite of the fact that here in my chart.yaml, this is a lowercase n. That just drives me batty. Yes, they are very case sensitive. Now what's with these expressions? These expressions are Go templates. So if we go to the Helm documentation, we can take a look at the various Helm templates that they have baked in and document how those work here. And that's really interesting to see. But since they are just Go templates, we can go take a look at the Go templates documentation and see how that works as well. So anything that is a valid Go template syntax is valid inside of a Helm chart. So if, else, end, range, end, block, those are pretty cool. To that end, let's start to upgrade our template and take advantage of some of these Go template pieces. Before we go there, though, any other questions? That was a great question. Thank you. Yes?
Do you ever feel like all of this is making it harder to read at the end of the day? Like, I know it's good to reuse all this stuff, but does it make it too hard to come back to and read?
Good question. Is this too hard to read? That is a great question. And one could argue that I could make this really unintelligible by having it call into various functions and have those compute things and do all the different things. When I get to that point where my YAML starts becoming really unintelligible, I've probably gone too far in my Helm chart. Now, at the end of the day, this is going to scaffold Kubernetes YAML content, so maybe the way I disambiguate all of that weirdness is I just template my YAML and take a look at the content it's actually going to apply into Kubernetes. But I agree, we're not going to go weird with function calls and other things just to kind of avoid that additional complexity. Our goal with this is to focus in on those values that we care about, not to dry up all of the things. Great question. Yes?
Are there any global variables that would be outside of these two YAML files, the values and chart YAML files?
Are there any global variables that are outside these two? I'm sure there are, current date, other details like that. We'll bump into one as we talk about releases. But ultimately, enumerating all of the different things isn't our purpose today. So I'd invite you to go dig into the docs. Sounds like I will be today, too. Thanks for the quest. Anything on Slack? Cool. So let's dig in. Now that we've kind of dug into what are these templates, let's see if we can get the rest of our values here. We still have ingress enabled, so let's come here into the ingress and build out this thing. Now I'm going to say here, if .values.ingress enabled, and I'm going to put a dash. Now this dash says space trim. So I won't end up with a blank line here. I could put the dash in both places if I really wanted to. Don't end up with a blank line here. Just do the thing. So that's going to say, if I've got ingress enabled, then do all of this. And I'm going to say here, end. OK, so if I've turned on ingress, I will get this part. And if I haven't turned on ingress, I just won't get it. That's perfect. Now I can focus in on the values that I care about. I can choose to turn ingress on or off specific to this project, and I'll either get or not get this part. Similarly, I want to replace this annotations. Now I may have many annotations here, so I can't just say, go grab the value. Instead, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say to YAML.values.ingress annotations, and I'm going to pipe it to an indent 4 spaces. Now that ensures that this will always be indented 4 spaces, even if it wraps to multiple lines. We'll do a similar thing here inside our deployment to get the resources. Now, I might have lots of resource details here. So let's say resources. And I need to indent this one 10 spaces. So whatever I've chosen to put here in this nested YAML bits, that will all get subbed into place here and indented the correct number of spaces. Now, the next thing that I want to take on is this. Now, I'm specifying my image, and I'm specifying the registry / the chart name colon the image label. That's perfect if I have a registry set. But what if my registry is blank? If my registry is blank, then this will end up being slash the chart name. That isn't right. I want to say only do this registry part if I've got a thing. So I'm going to say if .values.registry, and let's space trim that. And then I'll do the registry, and then I'll do the slash, and then I will say end. So I'm only going to do the registry if I have a registry to set, and therefore I will render the slash. And if I don't have a registry, then I won't render the slash. Cool. I think we've got our chart kind of built. Let's come back in and lint it. So let's say Helm Lint, and I'll give it my folder name, chart. Ooh, it worked. Excellent. So we've got our Helm chart built, and we were able to focus in on just those values that we care about. We can now kind of just look at this values.yaml and take a look at all the things that we want to adjust. And if we want to look through this, it is a smidge more complex, but if we are familiar with handlebars, perhaps from React or Angular or jQuery or handlebars, then maybe that isn't too far away. Cool. So next, let's take a look at our content. Now, we could have templated anything. In this case, we only templated a deployment, an ingress, and a service. But we could also template roles and secrets and config maps and persistent volumes and persistent volume claims. To that end, we could have templated anything. It doesn't need to be a Kubernetes YAML file that we're building. We could build any kind of YAML file. Do we have a configuration file in a buried directory that is kind of obscure that we want to template out to focus on the values that we care about? We could template out, well, any YAML file. So let's run this. Helm template chart. Am I in the wrong directory? Nope. Helm template chart. That is unexpected. Ooh, I do have a warning. Thank you. Templates directory not found. I have specified this as template, not templates. Thank you. I should read the lint. So now let me lint it. Yeah, that looks better. Now it really wants me to specify an icon, but OK, Helm template chart. That looks better. Here's that content that we just templated, and it swapped all of those values into place. So we do have a comment at the beginning, which is pretty cool. But we can take a look at this, and all of those values are swapped into place. Now let's do this, and we'll redirect it to disk.yaml. And then I'm going to pop open a diff tool here to just take a look at the original one and the one that we just built. I'm going to use Beyond Compare for this. Beyond Compare is amazing. We see that we do have the comment here. And we, I swapped out that incorrectly. Oh, I bet I left this registry as blank. There we go. We do need one quote around this so that YAML knows that it's one value. Let's re-template that. At the, oh, did I not save? There we go. Refresh. Live coding is awesome. Ooh, I need to space trim that one. Let's do that. Deployment, resources. I'm pretty sure that's the answer there. And ingress, I'm going to do the same one there. That'll learn me to copy my notes more carefully. Let's go regenerate that one. Mapping values are not allowed in this context. Nope, that wasn't it. Okay, well, I'm going to ignore that space and hope it does too. Okay, so we do have some comments at the top of our content, but other than that, we can see that we generated this file correctly. That's pretty cool. I may be glutton for punishment in a minute. Actually, let me diff this chart. The deployment compare to my original one. And let's see if I fubbed something else. Compare. I did have dashes. Oh, I had dashes in the middle, that's why. Cool. So that was a cool realization. I need one here, but not at the end. Here and here. And let's regenerate that one. And now we've got an exact match. Excellent. So we still have the quotes around this value, but YAML's going to be forgiving of quotes. I think we're OK there. So now I could take this thing, and I could redirect that off to, I could template that chart, and I could pipe it to kubectl apply -f-. Now that would go take these values and just push that off into Kubernetes, which is perfect. But maybe I'm in the middle of my build system, and I want to be able to set some values along the way. So we can actually do that. Let's set image label to be v0.1.0 and ingress enabled equals false. Now, we don't have an ingress. We only have the deployment and the service. And we can see that it swapped in that version correctly, where before it just had image label. That's cool. So maybe we're in the middle of our build system. We just finished the build, and we need to swap in build-specific details and then apply that to Kubernetes. So let's do that. I'll set my image label to 0.1.0, ingress host to quote, quote, registry to quote, quote. Yeah, if I'm going to set all of these to standard values, I may just want to update my values.yaml. But I like being able to override them here, so that's what we'll show here. And I will pipe that to kubectl apply -f-, and that will start up this content inside of Kubernetes. Kubectl get all, and I can see that now I have that service running in my application, in my Kubernetes cluster. So we are able to template things and just apply them straight into our Kubernetes cluster. If we're coming out of a DevOps build and we just want to take these resources and apply them, and we don't want to worry about packaging and publishing and all the rest, then this is the perfect use case for Helm, where we're just taking Helm, we're templating it, we're piping that into Kubernetes, and just starting that content. Just as easily as I started it, I can delete them, and kubectl get all, and now all of that stuff is gone. That's cool. So our first use case was just templating content and applying it straight into Kubernetes. But wouldn't it be cool if we could also package these things and start to use them in a reusable way? Let's upgrade a little bit to that mechanism. So I can say Helm package, and I'll give it my folder name called chart in this case. And it says, hey, I just built this thing right there. That's cool. Now, if we go to that thing, let's go to the folder. Here is at the Helm, and I will unzip it. And then we take a look at this. We will untar it. And basically what we've got is this chart folder. So if I was to compare this chart folder, I'll pull that up in Beyond Compare as well, with the chart folder that we had built. Compare. We can see that it's pretty much the same. Now, we did have some changes here in chart.yaml. It sorted and removed white space. That's fine. But I just tarballed that whole thing so that I can then apply it in interesting ways. Now, if we wanted to, we could send this to a different location. So let me go delete those things. And I'm going to package chart, and I'm going to set the app version to 0.1.0, and the version, the chart version to 0.1.0, and the destination to the dist folder. Now I got that tarball inside the dist folder. That's pretty cool. But now I also want to do some things where I do -- set. Let me set image label to v0.1.0 and the registry to quote quote and the ingress host to quote quote. And of course, this does not work. So here's where I want to load up a Helm plugin. This Helm plugin, Helm Pack, has the exact same syntax as the built-in Helm package, with the exception that it also has set. Ooh. So I'm going to switch this from Helm package to Helm Pack. And now I get this tarball here that has those details already baked into it. So at this point, I can bake in the build details. Here's the build image label. Here's any configuration parameters that were set as part of that build. Maybe I'm enumerating the resources that I need or the registry that I'm going to push it to. Next, let's see if we can install this package. So I'm going to say Helm install. Actually, let me go to the top. Helm install, and I'll give it a name. In this case, I'll call it my app. And I will grab dist at the Helm, and I will set ingress enabled equals false, and replicas equals 2. Now that's cool. Now I can set runtime parameters. Perhaps I'm setting the environment that I'm going to, or the details associated with this environment. I want to go into production, and so here's the registry associated with production. Previously, we set build details that got baked into the tarball. Here we're setting runtime parameters that might apply to this particular instance. Hey, that's cool. Here's my readme.txt that shows me a little bit about my resource. Helm status my app. And apparently I spelled my app wrong, and it'll dump this correctly. Helm list. We can see that there's the package that we installed. Now at this point it's revision 1. I haven't upgraded it yet. And here's the chart that I used, and here's the app version that got baked into it. So just as easily as Helm install, I can say Helm uninstall my app, and kubectl get all, and those things will be gone. I'm going to do that so that I can install it, spelling it correctly. And if I hurry, kubectl get all, I can see those resources got spun up. Now that's cool. I have my app running at this particular service, so if I come to localhost and that port, then I can see my application running inside of Kubernetes. Now that's cool. I didn't need to mess with any of the details of configuration and all of the YAML and make sure you replace this part of that file. I just said, hey, I want to send this thing into there. Now let's pretend I want to upgrade it. Now I'm not quite sure what we needed to upgrade. Maybe we needed to upgrade a feature of something, or maybe we wanted to set a parameter differently. But in this case, I'm going to upgrade my Helm chart, but I'm not going to upgrade anything else. So the Helm chart upgrade I'm going to do is, in this case, nothing. And so let's repackage this. I'm going to say Helm pack, and let's set this. But in this case, my Helm chart version is 0.1.1. I have the same version of my software. It's still 0.1.0, but I needed to modify my chart. I'm really glad that we had these two different versions. So I repackaged this. I now have a new tarball with the new version, and I'm going to say Helm upgrade my -app and point it to the new version, and I'll make sure that's 0.1. And now I've upgraded my app to be 0.1. Whatever difference is in the YAML, in this case there weren't any, Kubernetes is automatically going to apply. So we can see that we've now got our new content running. And if we say Helm list, we can see that we're now on revision 2. We used this new at the Helm 0.1.1 chart to be able to apply. We're still using 0.1.0 of our application. That was pretty cool. We were able to install something, we're able to upgrade it, and just as easily we can say Helm uninstall my app, and it would be gone. But I'm not going to do that yet. Any questions so far? Yes?
So, at which point and how would you pull in like secrets that are different between environments? You've got an API key for whatever that's different between that.
Ooh, good question. How would I pull in secrets that are different for different environments? That is excellent. There's a couple of different ways that we could do that. We could say, here's some secrets. And maybe we have that we're going to pass in as a parameter on the way in to installing it in each environment. Alternatively, maybe we just reference secrets and we're deploying to different clusters where that secret was installed previously and already has the values available. That was a great question. Did that answer your question sufficiently? How does the secret get there? Great question. So I could say kubectl create secret, my secret, data value. I'm sure I'm getting this wrong. Key equals value. And I could do that inside of each cluster. So I'll do this inside of this namespace, and I'll do this inside of that namespace, and I'll get all of the secrets pre-deployed in each cluster in exactly the way I need it to be, such that when my app shows up, the secrets are already in Kubernetes. Yeah, that kind of breaks the, I want to package everything into my package, which is why, yeah, probably the way that I would do it is like this. Enumerate the secrets in my values.yaml, give them default values that are not secret. Use the secrets. And then I would pass them in on the command line. So as I'm doing the Helm install and I'm setting my things, then I would say secret equals this value here. And that's how I would get that secret injected into place. If I had a lot of them, that's where I'd flip over to the other method. That was a great question. Secrets are fun. What other questions do we have right here? Okay, we've been able to package our application, and we've been able to take this tarball and then deploy it perhaps to multiple environments and configure it differently based on the different environments. But if I look at this and I do a kubectl get all, actually, let me get it to the top of the screen. We can see that the resources that we created all have this at the Helm name. So if I were to deploy it a second time, I would collide. Let's see if we can create a deployment-specific name in all the places. Now, here in this notes.txt, I see a reference to this release.name. Now, this wasn't a value in our chart.yaml. This wasn't a value in our values.yaml. So to your point about what values exist outside of it, this one. Here's release.name. And that's the thing that I called it, in this case, my-app. So let's use this in all the places to be able to create a deployment-specific version of it. So I'll say this one is chart.name-release.name. I'll give it a selector of app and release. The port and the target port are still the same, so that's fine. Coming into my deployment, I also want to give my deployment a release-specific name. I will also do the selectors there. I'll do the selectors here. And we don't need to change the name of the container. That's baked within the pod, so that's probably OK. Here in our ingress, we do need to forward it to that new service name. And we probably also want to give this a specific name. Now we've got that content to be specific. So let's go repackage that chart. Now I want to make this 0.1.2. And now that I've got that one, let me Helm install where's that note? There it is. Helm install my app2 dist at the Helm, and I'll make sure it's the new version. Set ingress enabled equals false, and replicas equals 1. And now I have two apps running in my Kubernetes environment. Helm list. I can see we've got the old one at revision 2. We've got the new version at revision 1. It's using the Helm chart 0.1.2. And so if I do a kubectl get all, we can see that we now have two versions of the application running simultaneously. Now the old one is still using the old chart, so it's got the old name. So let's Helm upgrade my app.dist at the Helm. We'll go grab that new chart version. And in a second, we'll see that now we have that new app, and they're both running simultaneously. Because we use the release name, now we can install two copies of our application in the same namespace. Now, there might be business reasons why we might choose not to do that, but it's definitely possible because we use the release name in our Helm chart. OK, so just as easily as we did that, let's Helm uninstall my app and Helm uninstall my app2. And if I hurry, nope, they're already gone. No fuss, no mess. This is why we like containers. We don't have registry rot. We don't have extra config files in random directories. Similarly, here in Kubernetes, we don't have extra role bindings or extra settings that got left behind. All of the content that we installed, we remove just as easily, and our cluster is put back to pristine. That's cool. Now, we were able to run this. We built this chart, and then we ran this chart. But let's upgrade again and take a look at, can we use charts made by others? And here's the part where I'm going to head off to Artifact Hub. And here in Artifact Hub, I might choose to search for other Helm charts, charts made by others. So I'm going to search for Nginx and land on this page. Here's the list of Helm charts that have gotten published to Artifact Hub. I'll click on Nginx and open up this page. And we can see that here's the details of how I can install this chart. Now, the values.yaml that they chose to focus on might be different than the values that I care about. But let's assume that they've created meaningful defaults. So maybe I don't need to worry about it. But we could look at, here's the parameters that they chose to expose that I might choose to override as I install it. But let's just come in here with the instructions. First thing, Helm repo add. So I will go install that Helm repo. And then I will install this Helm chart. Now, I've downloaded it previously because I'm not on the internet, so fingers crossed that this works. I've now gone and grabbed this Helm chart and installed it into my cluster. Now, the particulars of what's involved in this Helm chart, the Kubernetes YAML involved, that's not really important. Oh, it failed. But I was able to grab this Helm chart from the internet and start to install this package. So here I would do Helm list, but of course it's not there because it failed to install. But if we come look at this, what we see that's interesting, Artifact Hub is not a registry of charts. It is a registry of chart registries. One of the things that we struggle with is, so where do we host this? Do I have to publish my tarball into your hosting thing? Docker Hub struggled with this where it's like, well, but I don't want to consume all that bandwidth. With Artifact Hub, we are installing a particular repo to an external server. So we'll actually get the chart from them. And with no muss, we just Helm install that thing, and if I had internet, it worked. And I would say Helm list, and we would see that it was running, and Helm uninstall and my release, and it would be gone just as easily. Artifact Hub is a great way to be able to then try out various applications. So we can go grab a particular thing, maybe configure it as much as we need to, fire it up, and it will just install the deployments and the services and the role bindings and the secrets and the cluster roles and the config maps and the persistent volumes and anything that we need. It will just kind of put that into place. Now, it's not replacing Docker Hub. It's still pulling from a particular registry. We saw that even in our original one, we were still pulling from this particular registry to go grab that image. But we can see that all the mess of Kubernetes kind of fades away, and we can instead focus on just those few values that we care about. And with meaningful defaults, maybe we don't even need to worry about those. Any questions so far? Cool. So that was really fun. We got to build a Helm chart from scratch. We focused in on the values that we cared about and let all the rest of the Kubernetes duplication kind of fade away. We saw that we could scaffold any YAML file. Now, in this case, we chose to scaffold Kubernetes YAML files, but we could have scaffolded out a role or a secret or a persistent volume or a cron job and just scaffold out anything. Now, Helm is great at being able to scaffold these Kubernetes YAML files, but it's only about installation. Now, it can't monitor, it can't heal, it can't scale. We could choose to add those attributes into our Kubernetes templates. So if I wanted to dial out my deployment to include those details, I definitely could, but Helm itself does not. If I wanted to look at mechanisms for controlling more of the life cycle of Kubernetes resources, I might choose to upgrade to Kubernetes operators. Now, it is a very big logical leap, but it is possible. With Helm, we did the installation, and we might have done a little bit of the upgrades. But ultimately, the only thing we were doing was getting that into place. If we want to take a look at lifecycle hooks, auto-scaling and things like that, we could create an Ansible operator, and that gets us a little bit farther. But really, if we want to dig into the Go operator SDK, and then we get the full life cycle, where we might be able to get insights into things, auto-scale our thing, maybe create custom resource definitions, and allow them to create those definitions inside of Kubernetes, and we'll just kind of take care of how that gets there. And then autopilot, where we can say, yep, I'm going to automatically scale up and down, I'm going to self-heal. Kubernetes operators are able to do that, where Helm charts are not. Helm is great for removing that duplication. We saw how we could template out the details that we wanted. We could package that into tarballs. We could install those tarballs, and we could consume Helm charts built by others. Now, if we just had a CI/CD system, we might stop just at that first spot. Maybe I just want to set the parameters that I want to set and pipe that to kubectl apply, and at that point, we've reached the needs of Kubernetes. Or we might choose to push these to a registry, maybe our private Helm registry or perhaps a Docker registry, where we can deploy our applications into various environments this way. We saw those three things: templating, packaging, and then ultimately consuming the packages of others. And whatever level you want to play with, Helm will meet you at that level. And if you don't need the next level, that's totally fine. Helm was a lot of fun to dig into. Any questions about Helm? Can I have multiple value files, perhaps a different value file per environment? Ultimately, the values file is only specific to this chart. I could choose to have the value file include other files, and so maybe I have a function in there that takes in the environment and reaches into different YAML files, but that starts to get really complex. Ultimately, if I want different settings per environment, I generally try to pass them in the command line as I install the chart. Great question, though. Thank you. Yeah. If I included another value file, would that override the default? Let me dig a little bit deeper into that. So right now, I have this values file, but I also have these replacement expressions. So what if I did something like, that? Now I've gone and referenced variables in other places. Now because I said this is a to YAML, then that presumes that that is a whole lot of other things. Or perhaps I could call a go function to pull that in. Did that better explain that scenario? Slack questions, excellent.
Any suggestions for good resources to learn Kubernetes so later we can improve on it with Helm?
Ooh, good question. How can we learn Kubernetes to then eventually upgrade to Helm? I completely agree. Starting with Helm, you're trying to abstract away Kubernetes. That really doesn't help you learn Kubernetes. I did a talk here at Star Trek 2018, maybe 2019, that was a Kubernetes test drive. That might be a great resource. I also have a workshop called Kubernetes Hands-On that you can grab both of those from robrich.org/presentations. The workshop is actually a self-directed GitHub thing, and so you can go to github.com/robrich and search my repositories for Kubernetes Hands-On Workshop. I wish I had internet to pull it up. But ultimately, if you do have more questions that you want to dig into, if you want to dig into more of how to learn Kubernetes, hit me up on Twitter at rob_rich, or grab me. I'll be here for the rest of the conference. Thanks for coming.